Have you ever heard about the MT30 index but never understood what it is? Or been eager to invest in an index ETF than individual stocks on the Saudi exchange because you don't have the right expertise or time to explore? This video is then for you. For retail investors like us, index fund and ETFs are the preferred ways to explore the equity asset class. One of those options is the MT30 index on Tadawul, created together by Morgan Stanley Capital and Saudi Stock Exchange back in 2019. Today at Freedom with Finance, we will deep dive into what is MT30, what is an ETF, difference between ETF and index funds, and also show you how to invest in MT30 ETF. If you want to get the basics of an index fund, please check out my other video on the basics of Tadawul Stock Exchange. Link is on the bottom right. So MSCI incorporated Saudi Arabia to its emerging markets index back in 2019, which meant like this would open up the Tadawul Stock Exchange to international investors, foreign institutional investors as well, right? And we have seen a lot of more inflows, coming from abroad, coming from outside countries, into after this emerging market, after the inclusion to the emerging markets index. We currently have like around 26 countries under the MSCI emerging markets, including Brazil, India, UAE, Qatar. So what is MSCI Tadawul 30 or the MT30 index? It's based on a broader index, which is the MSCI Saudi Arabia IMI index. It targets the top 30 from that based on the market capitalization. It ranges between 25 to 35 stocks on a given point in time, and the maximum weightage to an individual stock in it is capped at 15%. So in short, MT30 is derived from a parent index IMI. So naturally, the obvious next question would be, what is IMI, right? So IMI is a broader index that tracks the performance of all three large, mid-cap, and small-cap segments of Tadawul. It has 112 stocks, individual stocks in it, and almost covers 99% of the market cap. So it's in a way, it's covering the entire Tadawul exchange. Roughly, it has 70% allocation to large cap stocks, 15% allocation to mid cap, and another 15% allocation to small cap stocks in a given point in time. There will be slight, deviations from this. As per MSCI documentation, it's around 5% deviation is allowed across all the three. Let's first go to the Saudi Stock Exchange website and see how to track this index. If you go to our markets, indices performance, select the MT30 index over here. This will give you the NAV chart over the last few years, right? And how it has performed over, since its inception. Keep in mind that MT30 was initiated around 2018, and therefore anything before that is just a mathematical formulation or a backtesting. It will also give you certain information about any important announcements, key constituents, latest price, year-over-year change, etc. Right? If you click on this fact sheet, this will lead you to the official MSCI documentation of the index. It will give you the description of what it is. It will compare. It will show you how it has performed fairly against the all share index, as well as the IMI index that I was talking about. It is a bit cyclical, but it has been generally performing better than the all share index. Right? We give you some historical analyzed returns, like the last 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 years since inception. The P seems to be rightly priced at the moment, around 15. It will also give you the standard deviations. Higher the deviation, more is the volatility, which also brings the point that do not time the markets. It's more important to be systematically investing in the index. Now, the next section will give you the top 10 out of the 30 individual stocks that constitutes this index, right? So it's led by alrajhi Bank, 14.56%, followed by SMB, SABIC, right, respective at 11.3 and 9.14%. The top 10 itself is contributing to 71%. In terms of sectors, financial sector is contributing to 50%, which also makes sense, especially in an emerging market economy. The banks drive the growth, and then that is being distributed to other industries. Like the banks have to lend money, they make money out of it. That's how the economy grows across. Even in India, in Brazil, you will see the same story. And followed by just some annual performance numbers comparing the MT30 against the all share index as well as the IMI, the parent index itself. So you should take a look. This is readily available on Google. You will also get a document on the methodology of selecting those 30 individual stocks. So the next thing that we need to understand is how to invest in MT30 index. So there are two ways of doing this at the moment, which is offered to retail investors. One is via the ETF or exchange traded funds. I will explain what it is. And the second is via index equity mutual funds. So why is ETFs and index funds preferred, right? But before we get into that, let's take one step back to understand what are the different ways that an individual investor or retail investor like us can purchase a company, right? The first option is if you buy a basket of company stocks. What do I mean by basket of companies? Rather than investing or purchasing just one single company or betting your whole entire money into one single stock, you're trying to purchase a bunch of them from across industries and across sectors, so that overall you are diversifying. And number two, you are trying to reduce the company specific risk as well as the sectoral specific risk. So if something happens to the entire telecommunication industry in Saudi Arabia, your fund will be impacted, but not that drastically as compared to if you had just purchased, if you had put your entire portfolio money into STC. So in this way, by just purchasing or investing in one index fund, you're buying a bit of STC, you're buying a bit of Saudi Aramco, you're buying a bit of SNB, alrajhi, etc., etc. And this is the preferred option for us, especially for those who do not have sufficient time to really get into the depth of fundamental analysis for individual stocks. Right? My majority, almost 85-90% of my portfolio is purely into index funds and other mutual funds. The other option of investing for us, as you all might have already guessed, is the purchasing an individual company stock, right? This way, you're just putting, your entire savings into, or your entire investment amount into one individual stock, or you're individually purchasing them based on your analysis, based on the facts that you have captured, etc. There's no right or wrong in both of these options. It's more about who you are and the risk that you want to take and the amount of time and expertise you're willing to give, to this whole topic. My preference has been to go with this index investing or the ETF index.
So what's the difference between an ETF and index funds? To do this, I've shortlisted like 4-5 bullet points between these two. But there are more similarities than differences between these two instruments, right? Both are passive ways of investing, meaning no human is behind these to decide which stock be bought. An ETF, consider ETF like an individual stock itself. You can easily buy and sell it on the exchange itself, right? While for index fund, it's created by a fund house like SabInvest or alrajhi Capital, right? They have curated this index fund imitating the index itself, and therefore you're buying from the fund house, which means that there is higher liquidity for the index fund but lower liquidity for the ETF, because on ETF you need to have a buyer on the other side to purchase your units when you sell it, which especially in a panic situation or in a downfall situation, it's much more difficult to liquidate your ETFs. Now, ETFs are comparatively less expensive or have a lower expense ratio as compared to the index funds. The biggest disadvantage I feel for ETF is that you cannot automate the purchase of ETF units. Like we can do it for an index fund. Index fund, I've set up like an SIP where every fifth day or the sixth day it purchases automatically based on that day's price. But for ETF, I have to manually go to the SabInvest or your broker account and then manually have to buy this every month, which leads to inconsistency between your purchasing behavior.
Okay, so I just logged into my SabInvest account. If you want like a detailed walkthrough of the SAB platform, let me know in the comment section and I can cover that separately. But a quick overview, the top bar tells you about your account details, balance, etc. Followed by, you can select, over here any specific index and it will show you the performance or the latest value, how much was in terms of volume, in terms of trade. This is the section for your trading. You can track any given company. You can buy, sell over here, any specific stock. If you go under the mutual funds, right, you will see all the listed SabInvest mutual funds. If you go to the market, This is where you will get like the individual stocks, all the individual stocks will be available here. So when I go to this market, right, and you will see here, this is the market watch where it lists down all the 227 companies, right? So if you scroll down, you'll see all. Now I'll click on this ETF, and when you click on ETF, you'll see here the SAB MT30. There are a bunch of other ETFs, right, by other capital accounts as well. Like Alinma has on a bond ETF. There's one on petrochemical ETF, US Tech ETF, etc., etc. Right. So if you're interested in the SAB MT30, here you can put it on the watch list. You can follow up on the chart. You can also get a view. If you want to create like alerts, you can set up alerts here. And if you want to buy or sell, go to the buy section. You can select whether you want as per the latest market price, or you want to put like some kind of a limit, specify the amount, the quantity, price, and then you just have to click on the buy. That's how you can purchase the MT30 ETF. Again, as I was mentioning, in the comparison between ETF and index funds, this is the exercise you will have to do manually every time. So if you want to have like a systematic plan of purchasing ETFs, you'll have to do this exercise every month or every 2 weeks, right? That's one disadvantage of maintaining an ETF for the long term versus starting an SIP with index funds and mutual funds. So this is what I wanted to cover today. We discussed what is MT30 index, its constituents, how is it calculated, how do we track the MT30 index, how do we invest in the MT30 ETF from SabInvest. Thank you so much for watching this. If you really like this video and want to learn more about Tadawul and different investing instruments, do press the like button, subscribe to the channel to get notifications.